Well, Socrates is getting pretty excited here because he thinks they're getting somewhere, that he's going to get something about the Hosean that he can use in court to defend himself as being a practitioner of Hosean and not an example of an Hosean, right? So now Euthyphro is sort of musters up another attempt or so, and this might be his last stand. He's getting pretty tired, right? As all the interlocutors do, and it's only been a couple of pages, right? Some Socrates interlocutors they wrangle with him for dozens. So the modified definition 3 looks something like this. The Hosean is that part of Dika. Remember, it's now subsuming it, not identifying it with Dika, but Hosean is part of Dika. And our question was, yeah, what part? That part of Dika that's concerned with care of the gods. Now you should be, uh-oh, the gods are back, right? Didn't we get rid of them? Wasn't the Hosean something independent? Well, now they've come back because we talked about the relationship of Hosean to the external notions of the god love. We said, no, it's something intrinsic. Now the gods are back. Sneaky gods. So, but anyways, let's follow the discussion now. So, what part? It's the part that's concerned with care of the gods. So, in this sense, now the larger circle here represents Dika, justice if you must, but now you're probably getting used to thinking Dika, right? And again, it's a Greek notion of justice, not necessarily ours. And if you read these texts closely, they had different notions of justice, but that's a whole other story. So the Hosean now will be involved in Dika, which is sort of a notion of care of, and we have two kinds of care of. Remember, as we had number, we had two kinds of number. We had the distinction within fear of the shameful and the not shameful. So the distinction within Dika is this notion of care of the gods. That's Hosean under this new version, and the other is care of men. So care of people, care of gods. Hosean will be under the notion, will be identified with that part of Dika, that is care of the gods. Okay, so then Socrates goes, all right, this is looking good. Let's go further, because you know the minute that you bring in a new term, care, Socrates is going to go, what does that mean? And that's exactly what he says. He says, okay, Hosean is something to do with the care of the gods. What do we mean by care? So off to the races again with an analysis of the concept now of care. So the Hosean is going to have something to do with care. And so doing the right thing and being right has something to do with caring. And that's a surprisingly modern notion. You find this a lot in virtue ethics today. So in any case, what does care mean? Well, they go through a number of, a little bit of a discussion here, but they come up with something like this. Well, to care for X a person or whatever, to care for something is really you're aiming at the good of it, right? You know, and we often use this in ordinary language, you know, like I have the best intentions. I only want your good. I have your good at heart, right? When someone says, yeah, I care about you. I worry about your future. I worry about where you're going. I'm looking out for your interests, right? I'm looking out for what's good for you. So sometimes, and sometimes you might have someone that cares for you and they don't do what you want them to do. But sometimes, you know, they can say, well, your wants and what's good for you aren't the same thing. So the notion of care as being striving after caring for something is to look for that something and aim at that something's good. All right. So then they have a bit of a discussion about what would care of the gods be, right? You can hear it's getting dangerous, right? Because you know Socrates is going to say, well, if you care for a horse, if you're a horse breeder and you care for horses, what you do makes the horses better, right? If you're a good dog breeder, or you're good at farming, you're good at these things, and you care about your farm, you make it better. You do something that improves it. You know, as a parent, you know, if you're trying to care for your kids, you make them better. You make sure that when they're sick, they get healthy, and when they don't know stuff, you shuffle them off to school, and you make you aim at their good to be better educated. You make things better. That's what care does, right? Or at least it prevents things from getting worse, right? So you look after it. You care about something. Well, that doesn't seem too bad. But Socrates then, you know, says. Well, if the horse breeder makes the horse better than before, How does this work now when we talk about the Hosean, right? What's going on here in the sense of the Hosean with regards to 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 uh, um, to making something better? Can you make a god better? Right? Socrates is a bit puzzled about this, right? That doesn't seem to be right. All right. So how 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 does Hosean make the gods better? How does care of a god make it better? Okay, so you know can you really make a god better, right? What are you doing? Well, what do you really do when you pray and all that? Do you make the gods better, or are you asking the gods to make you better? So is your care of the gods really like the care of of horses or your farm or your children? Is that the same kind of thing? Um, Socrates says, okay, Euthyphro, get a little bit more specific. And Euthyphro says and he uses the analogy. Remember when I said Greek society was a slave society? Well, here's an example of it. It's used as a commonplace, right? So Euthyphro says, well, caring for the gods is like the way the slave cares for the master, right? And and what exactly is this? The slave helps the master achieve some kind of end. And if you provide service to a master practicer, uses the example of a doctor. So a doctor's slave would help that doctor cure a patient, right? So it may not make the doctor better, but it would make the patient better. So the care of the patient, sorry, the slave's care of the doctor helps the doctor do something for the patient, not necessarily making the doctor better. It's just enabling the doctor to do his or her job, something like that. Um, and the service to a shipbuilder, right? Is you don't like if you're an apprentice or you're helping out a shipbuilder and you're holding the flashlight or passing wrenches over, you're not actually making the shipbuilder better. You're just helping. You're caring for the shipbuilder's instruments or tools that he or she uses and holding the flashlight so that she can see what she's doing or something like that. So it is a subordinate position that helps a good be brought about, but it doesn't. You're not actually making that shipbuilder. You're not like training the shipbuilder. The shipbuilder would be training you if anybody's getting trained. So, but you're caring in a sense for that shipbuilder to build better ships. So that service, yeah. So look at those examples and think about what Euthyphro is getting at them. So what's the excellence that the gods aim at? Like if shipbuilders aim at building better ships and farmers at breeding better animals and getting better crops, etc., etc. What's this excellence that the gods aim at using us as their caring servants, right? So what does it mean to care for a god? And then Socrates brings in another an analogy, this with soldiers and generals. The soldiers are in service to the general. The general wants to win the battle, and the soldiers help provide a service to the general in terms of going out on the battlefield and following orders. Farmers aim at many good things, at getting all the products from the earth, etc., food. And so Socrates says, okay, so how would you sum up, the many fine things that the gods provide? Well, it's Euthyphro is a bit puzzled by all this, and he says something along the lines of, if a man knows what to say and do to please the gods, we're now in pleasing the gods again. Didn't we get rid of that? It's back. So what to say and do to please the god at prayer and sacrifice, then that preserves private houses. Remember I talked about the gods, help you out here on earth. It's not so much the afterlife stuff. Well, that's creeping back into the dialogue now. So care for the gods is to, praise them and and please them so that they maybe help you out with the weather and don't allow barbarians to storm the gates and take over your city. This is if the opposite of these pleasing actions to the gods. So the pleasing actions to the gods would be the Hosean, and the unpleasing actions to the gods would be the Anhosean. Okay, so this Socrates is like, this is getting awfully convoluted now, and I'm not sure you want to help me. But so they offer this these modified version of a modification. Let's put the little asterisks here. So now we have a modification of, okay, so there's another modification of this being a bit more specific about the care of the gods. So let's dig into that.